And the appointment, by the way, was made by the sovereign himself, the guy who had moved for habeas corpus, because it was his court, see? And I'll explain that in a few minutes. So he appointed me, he listened to me a moment, and I said, the reason I'm here, I'm not here to discuss the case. I don't want to impose on you in that way. I was very polite to him. But I said, there's some unusual things that are happening here, and I just wanted to give you, a heads up on it, letting you know that I'm here to conduct business, not to stir up anything. Okay? So I said, great. He appreciated that. Let me tell you something. These judges, some of them are really human. Okay? I had a little luck. As I found out later, he was much smarter than most judges. I didn't know it at the time, but it turned out this guy was really pretty sharp for a municipal court judge. But anyway, as I was talking to him, the prosecutor came in. He took one glance at me, obviously a fellow attorney, and so he started talking to the judge. And lo and behold, he's going to talk about the very same case I'm in. Now, you know that an attorney is not supposed to go in without the other party, right? So here I had him cold. Now, it was okay for me to be there because I was not representing him. I was an officer of the court, the Superior Court. And besides, I wasn't discussing the case anyway. I was just letting him know that I had a purpose. Well, the judge was pretty sharp. He cut that off real quick. Of course, if I wanted to push the issue, it was too late for the guy. But I let him off the hook. But we got out. When he called the case in the courtroom, I stood up and I had on my right the public defender that had been appointed to the case, and on my left I had the district attorney. And at some opportune moment I got a chance to speak. I was standing right between them. So the judge says to me, we talked back and forth. He wants to know what's happening here, and I said, well, I'm been appointed as a special master in the Superior Court of the State of California, and I am here today to observe the proceedings in this matter, and I'm here and now declaring the Superior Court of the State of California open and in session. So now we had one courtroom and two courts. And so then we started discussing it, and I said to the judge, there were some issues here involving common law and so on, and I said, and so he told me, he says, the common law doesn't have any standing in this court. And I said to him, I agree. However, the Miranda decision, Miranda versus Arizona, says that where substantive rights are concerned, there shall be no rulemaking. That wasn't quite correct, but close enough. So he acknowledged that. He said, okay, yeah, he respected the Miranda decision. So then he says, well, what do you want from me? Now that was a trap, because I don't want anything from him, but my court does, my sovereign does. So it's very important that I didn't say what I wanted. Instead, I represented the court. So I said to him, it is the wish of the Superior Court that the municipal court release jurisdiction of this matter to the Superior Court until such time as the issues in the Superior Court are settled. Okay? And so he said, I'll do that if you will give me the order in writing. So I said, well, I came here, now I can speak for myself, see. I said, I came here with an order half prepared because I didn't know exactly how things would go, but I said, if you will recess the case, I'll complete the order and deliver it to you upon recall. So he said, great. So he recessed the case, moved on to other business. In the meantime, I went out and I hand printed the rest of it and did the copy machine thing. You know, it was quite a race there because I wanted to be back soon. So I got back there and he recalled the case. Now, before I go into what happened, I'd like to tell you something else that happened in that case. In that first session, we had a moment where we were both collecting our thoughts, the judge and I. The district attorney stood up And she said, Your Honor, who is this man? I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's doing here. Silence. The judge just sat there and looked at her. She sat down. And then he turned back to me and he picked up on our conversation as though she was not in the room. Now you know how cozy district attorneys and judges are. Was that an insult or what? Now there I was with my knees shaken because you see I was operating on reason. I had no experience to look to. I couldn't ask anybody what happens, blah, 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 okay? It was pure, raw reason. But my research told me I was right. But my knees were shaking, believe me. I was scared. Because I knew I was kind of out on the, on the plank on this one. So anyway, when that happened, I instantly knew I was on the right track. Because no way would any judge ever treat a district attorney that way. No way would he give a third-party intervener such as myself the amount of time he gave. Right? You know that. But he did here, so I was doing something right. So anyway, back to the second session. I delivered the order to him. He read it into the record, and then he ordered it to be filed in the record. And then he closed the case for that moment, and that was it. Okay? He accepted the order. Now, I'm sure he was going to do some research and decide whether or not to arrest me and so on. But as it turned out, it worked. And now, what I'm telling you here doesn't always work. Okay? Gandhi made it clear that passive resistance works extremely well. He beat England with passive resistance. Using passive resistance, he liberated all of India from England. We have the same thing here. These techniques, we've been pretty successful at stopping the government. We have not been successful at getting the government to pay. Why? Because passive resistance works for the government too. They say, make us. Okay, pretty hard to make it. So what you have to do is when you do these things, you have to put their paychecks at risk. That's when you get their attention. Okay? As long as they're secure in their paychecks, and you know how bureaucrats are, they're all insecure. Bureaucrats don't like to take risks. They're non-risk takers. And when you start suing them and including them in it and making a reasonable lawsuit to where it looks like, I might lose this one, all of a sudden their attitudes change. Also, another thing that is really, really important is attitude. Okay? Attitude is one of the key things. I do not buy into the concept that the government is evil. What I do buy into is that there's a lot of abusers in government. And my own experience has been that if you do your paperwork right, and of course if you have a high enough risk assessment on their paychecks, there are a lot of people in government who will back you up if you give them the tools to work with. There are a lot of people who don't agree with what the government's doing who are in government, but they're not going to put their jobs at risk. They will put their jobs ahead of your liberty. So you've got to give them the tools with which to protect you, because they're not going to do it on their own. And so we've had a number of turnarounds where the judge, who was a real tiger on the bench, suddenly became a lamb and sweet as pie. Why? Wasn't anything that we directly said as far as we knew, and yet he did a 180. Well, I know a leopard doesn't change his spots. Isn't that the old story? So what happened? Well, what happened, and I'm theorizing because I don't know, but my theory is that we must have got him boxed in, and somebody, one of his perhaps wiser colleagues told him, you better quiesce this thing or you might get in trouble. See, that's what I can figure. That's what must have been happening. Or they might have just told him it was flat out wrong. So, all I know is that I select my target, I select my strategy, I go straight toward it as best I can, and I trust that there are honest people behind the scenes who I will never meet, never know about, but who will back me up if they can do so without risk. And how do they do it without risk? They look at the paperwork, and the paperwork's solid, and they let the guy know, hey, this is solid. Watch out, these guys might get you. You better get rid of this as fast as you can. Okay? That to me, and I count that as a win, even if I didn't collect any money. So, anyway, that's my little 2 cents worth of philosophy on that subject. Well, like I said, I can't cover in great detail everything, but I'm just going to skim along and introduce you to some ideas which I think you'll like. Let's go to the law notes. Oh, well, before that, I want to tell you about the devil and Daniel Webster. Okay? This is a great little story, written in 1936, I think it was. And the reason I put this story in here is because Daniel Webster was an attorney, among other things. The real Daniel Webster. This is a fictional story. It's a great little short story. First appeared in the Saturday Evening Post in 1936. And what I like about it is the common law in action. And there's the accuser. The magistrate came in. The jury was there. It was a jury of all Americans. I think the Pirate Teach was on there, and a few other interesting guys. They were all picked by the devil, okay, because it was his court, because he was the accuser. But it's such a neat little story, and it has some very, very wise advice. By example, it has some wise advice on how to deal with a jury. So, entertaining story. I think everybody should read it, and so that's why I put it in. Okay, so if you want to send me any email, click on the email comments, and that will bring up the email. Well, Poco Mail is one of my little packages I use. I didn't intend that, but okay. Okay. Little footnote here, totally unrelated to this, but time for some entertainment. I was over at a labor union the other day in their offices, and I saw a bumper stick on somebody's desk. It said, "Get that son of a bush." No, it said, "Get rid of him." That's what it said. Okay. Anyway, we'll go to the law notes. Now, the law notes, we have an overview, which is just a few words that are nice, but they don't mean much. We have the foundation right here, and the rest of it is supportive of the foundation, but the foundation is the most important part. If you're going to read this CD, I suggest that first chance you get, you read everything that's in the foundation, because that gives you the foundation on this strategy that I use. Okay? So let's take a quick spin through the foundation. The first thing is language and dictionaries. You remember 1984, that story? Here's a little quote from it. "How's the dictionary getting on?" Winston asked his comrade. Okay? "We're getting the language into its final shape," Syme answered. "By the year 2050, at the very latest, not a single human being will be alive who could understand the conversation we're having now." Okay? This is what they're doing. They're changing the language for us. If you look at the Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, I like that dictionary. The reason I like it is because it tells me what their policies are. It's not a very good legal dictionary.